And welcome back. In this video, we're going to implement Destination NAT leveraging the NAT configuration that's integrated as part of the security policy entries. And before we go to the configuration for the firewall, let me give you a big picture view of how it's done. We're going to create something called a virtual IP. It's an object on the FortiGate. And in this virtual IP, it's going to ask us about the external address. That's the one we want the world to see. So we'll say that is 23.1.2.222 based on our plan. And then in this virtual IP, I'll call it VIP for short, in this virtual IP, it's also going to ask us about the real address. So if our server is going to be here at .100, in this virtual IP configuration, what we would do is specify the internal address of, and it is 172.16.1.100. And then in the security policy rule, what we'll do is refer, when it says what destination address, we'll refer to this virtual IP object, and then it knows, okay, I get it. It's automatically, when it sees traffic coming in to 23.1.2.222, it's automatically going to swap out that destination IP address to 172.16.1.100 before it forwards it along its way. So here on the firewall, again, we're reminded that we are not using centralized NAT because there's no entry for it. So with virtual IP selected under policy and objects, we'll click on create new. And from the drop-down, we'll click on virtual IP. I'll go ahead and name this DMZ server. I'll go ahead and change the color here to make it a little more visible. And then regarding the type, it's going to be a static NAT. And now it's asking us what is the external IP address or range. So here, I'm going to specify 23.1.2.222, the actual IP address on the outside, and then the real IP address on the DMZ where that server is, which is 172.16.1.100. And so the cool thing is that as part of our security policy, if we say the destination is this new virtual IP object called DMZ server, when that initial traffic comes in, it will swap out the destination address of 23.1.2.2.2 with the new destination address of 172.16.1.100 on that initial flow of traffic. So we'll click OK here. So there's our virtual IP object. And now let's apply that as part of our policy. So we go back to firewall policy. So this first rule here, this first security policy is for traffic from in to out. We need to create a new one regarding traffic from the outside trying to get to the DMZ. So here we'll click on create new. We'll name this web server traffic, and that the incoming interface is on the outside, where the users are on the outside world. And that traffic, when it goes out to the server, will be going out of the interface port 3, which is connected to the DMZ. The source could be anybody on the internet, so we'll say all there. And for the destination, this is where we inject that virtual IP. So we click on the plus symbol, and over on the right, if we scroll down, there is our virtual IP object. So if we hover over it, it's showing us that it's a virtual IP object, and it's showing us the external IP address and also the mapped address. So when traffic on the outside hits that IP address of 23.1.222, based on this security policy rule and this virtual IP object, it's going to swap out that destination address to the 172.16.1.100 address and then forward it. And as far as service for the demonstration, I'm going to allow all. So HTTP, HTTPS, ping, everything else. And then down here, we really don't need to use NAT at all, source NAT, because we're already using this virtual IP right here. So traffic going to that DMZ server is going to have destination NAT happen for it because of this rule. So with that in place, let's go ahead and click on OK. So now we need a device out here that can make a request or access .222, which then would be led up to the server because of our virtual IP we have right here. So let me bring out a little device and place it here on the 23.1.2 network, and then we'll verify that we can not only connect to that server, but we'll also take a look at the session information and verify the destination NAT that's taken place on that initial flow of traffic. All right, so here is my hypervisor environment, and for virtual machines, let me just go down to networking and port groups, and this is the network. There we go, lab internet right there. If I click on that port group, it'll show me who's connected to it. So I've got a device right here, Kali outside. So I'll right click on that, go ahead, and do I have a snapshot? I do have a snapshot. Let me go ahead and restore snapshot. Click on restore, because I think I made that snapshot while it was running. So it should be up and active here in a moment. And let's also right click, and I will open up a console to that little virtual machine right here. So let me minimize ESXi, and let me bring in this Kali box. So this represents the PC that's connected on the outside. Let's just verify real quick the IP address it has. All right, so we'll do ifconfig and scroll up a little bit. All right, 23.1.2.50. Great. Let's go ahead and do a ping real quick to 23.1.2.222. I'm laughing because it's working. Let's also let's do a Control C and let me open up a browser. Actually, let me just leave that ping running continuously, and let's open up a browser and also verify that we can go to web services on that server that's here on the DMZ. All right, so we'll go to 23.1.2.222, press enter. And sure enough, that is working. Well, let's don't get me wrong. I'm happy it's working, but a lot of times we have to troubleshoot these things. Let's go to firewall 1. Let's take a look at the command line and take a look at the existing sessions, including the destination NAT that has taken place. So here at the command line, I'll hit the up arrow key and do a get system session list, press enter. And what we're looking for is this right-hand column where we have destination NAT. So right here, this entry right here. This is our client, 23.1.2.50, with a source port of 47,312. We're not doing source NAT on this source address, but when that client went to 23.1.2.222 to port 80, this firewall did destination NAT, swapped out the destination address to 172.16.1.100, port 80. And when the response was sent back from the server, the firewall untranslated the response and fed it back to the client. So that was for the web traffic, and this one right down here is for the ping. So ping uses ICMP, and again, when that client went to that server at 23.1.2.222, it swapped out the destination address and then forwarded that packet on its way. So in this video, we've set up destination NAT, a one-to-one mapping between an outside address, a globally routable address, and that DMZ address that the server was using. And we did it by including the virtual IP as part of a security policy rule. Again, that's a way that many people implement and set up their FortiGates, is with network address translation tucked in and directly connected with their security policy entries. However, it's not the only way. The other option, of course, is use a centralized approach, very similar to what we did with SourceNet. And good news, in the next video, I'll walk you through setting up destination NAT with centralized management of address translation. So I'll see you there in just a moment. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.